Good morning, all. Good morning. We are now live on Facebook and on YouTube. So, welcome you all here for another session with us of daily learning and lockdown inspiration. Are we up or down? Is the theme of today. Are we up or down? So, thank you all for joining. I see people are logging on this morning as I'm talking. So, please keep on logging. Please keep on sharing your comments. Fantastic. That's the way to do it. Keep on sharing your comments. Thank you all. Welcome to one and all. Thank you. Thank you. Just 1 second here. Why is it not working? Okay, good stuff. I see everyone's coming on, so good to see you all here. Good stuff. Good morning, all. In just a minute, I'm going to return the greetings. I see everyone's sharing their greetings here, which is beautiful. Keep on sharing, because I'd like to respond to you personally in just a moment. Good. Let me welcome you all here. So I see many of you have logged on to Facebook, and I want to welcome you personally. So those who have shared with us, Shelley Stein, good morning, Felicia Janks, Tracy Mindel, Boker Tov, Ruth Kaplan, Mandy Bloch, thank you. Lyndon Jaime Drew, thank you. Boker Tov, Larry, Bernice Krause, thank you. Norman Stein, Boker Tov, it's 10:30 again, absolutely. Robert Levy, good morning. Michael Stein, thank you. Michael Miller, Boker Tov, good to see you all here and on YouTube. The YouTubers, wow, you guys have been busy. Manfred Kalmuk, Raylene Brask, and Stan, Dennis Solomons, Rutkus, David Ginsburg, Everett Walpert, Sowen Trigger, Shalom, Tega Sega, good morning, Stephen Herr. Good morning, Sherilyn Diamond, Sowen Trigger, Shalom Trigger, Ian Clemenson, and Shlomo Musikant. I'm so happy Shlomo's here. Shlomo, wonderful that you're here with us. Thank you for joining us. Jenny Lichtenstein, good morning. Leonie Seika, good morning. Fantastic. It's a busy crowd here this morning. So well done to one and all for being here now. And before I get going, I'd like to acknowledge David Seed, good morning. I'd like to acknowledge the Musikant family, because they have kindly sponsored today's learning in memory of Shlomo's late wife and their mother, Chaya Nechama Devora Bat Eliezer. So to Shlomo and the family, the Musik family, thank you for your tzedakah. Thank you for dedicating the learning in her memory as an appropriate thing to do tzedakah and learning in memory of a loved one. So yeshakach to you, Shlomo. And stay on the line with us as we learn together. I think the topic could be very relevant to the occasion of her Yortzeit, which is today. I also want to make mention of good friends of mine who need a refuah shalema. Rav Shmuel ben Itamira and Liron ben Sarit. May they have a refuah shalema, and all others that need a refuah shalema speedily. I was sent a message, and I'll just read it out. To dedicate to refuah shalema for Yehudit Sarah Bat Leah Chaya. So we'll dedicate that as well to a complete refuah shalema. Ryan Olwen, good morning. Fantastic. So we got a great crowd here this morning. It's a busy crowd. Thank God. We're over 35, close to 40 viewers here between Facebook and YouTube this morning. So I welcome you all online with us this morning as we learn together and grow together and strengthen one another. I don't know how many of you are following Israeli news, but Israel has just put in new corona lockdown regulations once again because of the spreading of the virus. While they were getting back to semi-normal lifestyles, the country has now put in new regulations. Good morning, Ronnie and Eleanor. Great. To the Kotkas family. Thank you. So Israel's put in new regulations, and I want to share with you something that Health Minister Yuli Edelstein, he was a former chairman or spokesman of the Knesset. He said yesterday something very powerful, which I wanted to focus on today. In a news press yesterday, Yuli Edelstein shared with Israel the following. The Jewish people in every generation has grown up with a grandmother and a grandfather. Generally, we are a multi-generational family. It's one of the blessings of the Jewish people. We are a multi-generational family. We are a mixed generational family. And Baruch Hashem, the majority of people have merited to have grandparents, parents, and children, if not a fourth generation as well, of great-grandchildren. And therefore, Health Minister Yuli Edelstein emphasized and requested of Israeli society to make sure that we retain that. Make sure we keep our grandparents. Make sure we protect them and look after them and keep them healthy. And therefore, he's asking that those who are over 60, those who are grandparents already, should be very, very careful during this time. He's asking of children or the next generation, middle level families, not to visit their grandparents during this time because the virus is catchy and we want to hold on to our precious neches, our precious property. And the precious property is our grandparents. Such powerful words. You know, it seems like he's responding to a crisis, which I think he is. He's responding to a crisis. Israel's numbers are picking up. And he's warning Israeli society, just take care of your grandparents or the parents, the elderly or the older, the more senior. Take care of them. Make sure they stay around for a long time. Don't put them and compromise their health. Powerful words. You know, when I was growing up, I only had one set of grandparents. But that wasn't common. Most of my friends had two sets of grandparents. I only had one set of grandparents. My father lost his parents before he got married. My father's parents were Holocaust survivors who had come to Australia after the war. And they were already, in fact, I think it was a second marriage. My grandfather lost his first wife and children in the war. This is my father's parents. Many of you have heard my mother talk about her side of the family. My father also grew up in a family of Holocaust survivors. His father lost his first wife and children in the Holocaust, and then married my grandmother. But My grandfather died when my father was 15 years old. And my grandmother passed away when my father was 21, 22 years old, just before he got married at the age of 23. He lost his mother, which means he came to his chuppah as what we call a yatom. He was a mourner. He was an orphan with no parents, bringing him to the chuppah. That's tragic. Tragic. Let alone grandparents. He didn't have parents to bring him to the chuppah. And my father would often talk about his parents. I'm named after my father's father, Pinchas Yehuda, was my father's father, who died in Melbourne when my father was 15 years old. So I didn't grow up with those grandparents. I didn't know those grandparents. My sister was named after my grandmother. I'm named after my grandfather. We didn't know my grandparents. So I want to highlight Yuli Edelstein's comments, the health minister in Israel, who said that we are privileged. The majority of the Jewish people throughout history are privileged to have 3 generations in their family. Grandparents, parents, and children. And we need to sustain that and look after that and protect that. God forbid that we should put our parents or grandparents under risk. Morning, Mora Dworkin. Thank you for your good wishes. Anyone else that's joining us this morning, please do let us know. Put into your comments. Share your comments, share your greetings. We'd love to welcome you here. We thank our sponsors for today, Shlomo Musikant, who's sponsoring in honor of his wife's yard site. We wish refuah shalema to all those that need a refuah shalema. And thank you for joining for some inspiration. Now, I was commenting on the health minister's comments regarding the cross-generational, the mixed-generational community of Jewish people, and how important it is to look after the grandparents at a time like this. You know, it ties in beautifully to the theme of the parasha. Because the theme of the parasha is Bilam, who wanted to curse the nation. And Bilam ended up blessing the nation. Hi, Dennis Basarabi on YouTube. Thanks for joining. Bilam ended up blessing the community. And yesterday we spoke about the bracha of Matovo Ohalecha Yaakov Mishkanetecha Yisrael. We spoke about how beautiful the tents and the living places of the Jewish people are. But I want to quote another verse of Bilam, because Bilam saw exactly what Yuli Edelstein emphasized to us yesterday. Yuli Edelstein is speaking on behalf of the health ministry. On behalf of the health ministry, and Bilam was speaking thousands of years ago for the Jewish people. As Brian writes, which nation in the world has a mission statement of Kibud Av Va'em? Absolutely. To have a health minister who tells the nation to keep careful, be careful, and protect the older generation, the grandparents. That's Am Yisrael for you. Hi, Neil Herman. Thanks for your greetings on Facebook. Thank you. So listen to the words of Bilam. Bilam says, Ki mirosh tzurim areno, umigvaot ashureno. It's a beautiful, beautiful phrase, which in fact Yaakov Shweki has now made famous. Let me share with you those words. I want to be precise. I want to be precise in its translation. Ki mirosh tzurim areno, umigvaot ashureno. Listen to the translation. From their mountains, from the summit of the rocks, from the top of the mountain, I will see them. Umigvaot ashurenu, and I will praise them from the hilltops. That's the opening verse. The truth is that Ian Clemenson mentioned yesterday the words that the Jewish nation will dwell alone. Right? That was Ian's comment yesterday. So that's the next part of this same verse where it says, and the nation of Israel will dwell alone. But let's focus for a moment on these words. The words of the first half. From the tops of the hill of the mountains, I'll see them. Umigvaot, and from the hilltops, Ashurenu, I will praise them. Hi, Lionel Rubin on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Now listen to this comment. Bilam says, what does it mean, Merosh Tzurim? From the top of the mountains. What does it mean, I'll look at them from the top of the mountains? Obviously, simply speaking, he stood on the mountain and he looked down off the mountain. That's one explanation. But there's another explanation. The other explanation is, I looked at their Rosh. I looked at the top. I looked at the origin of their roots. I looked at their bobbas and zaydas, their sabbas and saftas, their grandpa and grandma. I looked at the grandparents, says Bilam. I'm looking at the mixed generation. Isn't it amazing how Yuli Edelstein, the health minister in Israel, is telling the Jewish people in 2020, take care of your elders, take care of your parents, don't let them get sick. And this is exactly the praises that Bilam was saying in his prophecy. What does he mean, Merosh, from the top, from their head? He means, I'm looking at the head. I'm looking at the top of the family. I'm looking at their patriarchs and matriarchs. I'm looking at their grandparents, the grandmothers and the grandfathers, and I'm saying, wow, what a nation. Because their nation is connected to their family. The nation are walking in the guidance and the guidelines of their grandparents. And I see how well-founded they are. I see how they're well-founded because they're so connected to the previous generations. They're not new generations that are trying to find their way in the dark. We hold on to tradition. We hold on to our values. We hold on to our parents and our grandparents who have always traveled together throughout Jewish history because our foundation is so strong. And he says, when I saw the Rosh, then I knew that the Jewish people are eternal. Because I saw the grandparents leading the way, I knew they're eternal. The word that he uses is Merosh Tzurim Arenu. What does Tzur mean? What does Tzur mean? Let's give you the question. What does Tzur mean? Tzur means a rock. Because the grandparents, the Zaydas and the Bobbas and the Saftas and the Staftas are the rock of the Jewish people. Very good, Brian. Very good, Avril. Well done. They're the rock of the Jewish people. Merosh Tzurim, the Rosh. The Rosh. Is the head. Merosh Tzurim is the head. The rock is the head. Thank you, Robert Levy. Merosh Tzurim. And you know what's interesting? This ties into the next part of the verse. Because recognizing our parents and our grandparents, as Bilam said to us, and as Yuli Edelstein, the health minister of Israel, told us, look after your grandparents. We need our grandparents. The risk of COVID-19 virus is too risky. And we've got the responsibility of maintaining the mixed generational hierarchy to the Jewish people. The mixed generational setup. It's part of our tradition. And explains the next verse. The next verse says, Hen am levadad yishkon. The nation will dwell alone. The Jewish people dwell alone. What's the connection? How does that work? The answer is because we don't need to rely on other generations. Because we have the Rosh Tzurim, because we have the heads of the families, our Bobbas and our Zaydas, our grandparents who are leading the way, we don't need to mix with other nations. We don't need to find a new culture, a new civilization, a new mentality. We have our traditions. Hen am levadad yishkon. Why? Because who gets mixed up in other nations? Who goes to mingle and find their way? You know who finds their way? Very good, Brian. In Hatikva, it says Tzur. It's a reference to God. So who gets lost? Who has to mingle and mix with other cultures and other mentalities? You know who? People who lose their way. People who aren't sitting next to their parents and their grandparents. They get lost. They climb the mountains of Asia trying to find their way. But the ones who have their Rosh Tzurim, they have their grandparents and their patriarchs leading the way and showing them and guiding them about the values, Hein am levadad yishkon. They can dwell alone. They don't need to rely on other nations. We know exactly who we are. We know our identity. We know our customs. We know our values. We don't have to rely on anyone else. And so the two parts of the phrase are connected. Uvagoyim lo yitchashav. And they don't want to be considered among the nations. They dwell alone, uvagoyim lo yitchashav, and they don't want to dwell among the nations because they know their tradition. They don't belong in the nations of the world. And how sad is it when we talk about intermarriage? How sad is it when we talk about a lost generation who don't see these values, who don't follow in the footsteps of their grandparents, who lose their way and find other goyim, other nations to mix among. That's a tragedy. I just want to pause here for a moment and to welcome one and all for being here. If you're just logging on now, we've got over 30 viewers online right now, close to 40 viewers online right now. So well done, and thank you for sharing. Michael Stein, thanks a lot for that. I appreciate that. And Shlomo Musika, and this ties in because we're learning in memory of your wife. And she too is a matriarch of the family. Chaya Nechama Devara Bat Eliezer. She too is a matriarch. And the children and grandchildren need to remember their grandparents. Those who are alive and those who have passed on. Those who are living physically and those who are living spiritually. The parasha reminds us about the power of the older generation. Rabbi Lau, Yisrael Meir Lau, who is, as we know, former chief rabbi of Israel, but a Holocaust survivor of Buchenwald, says something very powerful. He says, you think we lost a big part of our nation in the Holocaust? We did. But he says we've lost a bigger part of the nation through assimilation. How frightening is that? We all mourn for the Holocaust and the 6 million who perished. But says Rabbi Lau, how many more have we lost due to assimilation? Young adults and adolescents who lose their way and don't have a sense of direction, a sense of guidance, who lose the passion of enthusiasm and fall into the environment of kaltkeit, of coldness and apathy and heresy. In the big world of the goyim, of the nations of the world, they lose their way. We've lost more to assimilation than to the hands of our enemies. And so Yuli Edelstein said that it's the responsibility of the young ones, the younger ones, to make sure their parents stay home, to make sure that the little ones or the children or the teenagers should not go visit at this point in time. So we make sure that they keep safe. And today's message is how the older generation have the responsibility of educating and motivating and inspiring the younger generation. Because Bilam says it, that when you have a strong rosh, a strong head, when you have parents and grandparents who show their way to their children and their grandchildren, that's going to be the sustainability and the continuity of the Jewish community forever. And so while Yuli Edelstein is asking for the younger generation to protect the older generation, I am asking the older generation to protect the younger generation. Although we can't do it physically in face-to-face during this difficult time, but maybe over Zoom and over phone calls and interaction where the older mentor the younger, the older inspire the younger. Sometimes we think we're living in a community, we're living in a generation where they don't want to hear from the older generation. You know, the new generation. It's a new generation, postmodernism. Postmodernism promotes individuality. I've got to be an individual. Fight for my own success. Reach great heights. Don't let the community hold you down. You can grow and grow. That's the new generation, postmodernism. That's the mindset of the younger generation. I don't have to be at home. I don't have to stay together with my parents and grandparents. I can find my own way. And while there are advantages to that, there are advantages to the I mentality. There are advantages to the individuality that today's generation is pushing for. There are benefits today. That's true. But there's big risks as well. The risk is that with such a mentality, we're going to lose direction and inspiration from the previous generation. So while they're searching for individuality, we've got to remember our responsibility of guiding them. And it may seem like they don't want to hear from us, but they do. They do want to hear from us. They want to hear our guidance. They want to hear our inspiration. They want to know the values that we grew up with, that the grandparents grew up with, so that they can at least continue that in the next generation. And yes, the modern world is going to be very different to the previous world. We know that. The generation that our children and grandchildren are growing up in is very different to the generation in which the grandparents grew up in. We know that. But nonetheless, Bilam said that the success of a nation is when you have a strong top, a strong Rosh, Mirosh Tzurim Erenu, from the tops of the mountains. That's where it all starts from. And that's why when it comes to our davening, we say Elokeinu v'Elokei Avosenu, our God and the God of our forefathers. Because Hashem is not just our God. Hashem is the God of our forefathers. That's why it's so powerful. He's the same God as our forefathers. Our forefathers are the ones that passed down that tradition to us. We say Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Or we bless our children. They should be like Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah to the girls, and Ephraim or Menashe. As the boys, why do we mention our forefathers and our patriarchs and our matriarchs? Every time we bless our kids, every time we daven the Amidah, why is it so important to mention the previous generations? Hi, Alini Dulovitz. Helen Weising, thanks for your comments. Thanks, Michael Stein. Appreciate that. Why do we mention that? Because we know that everything we have is because of our forefathers. Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, whoever we are today. And the fact that we're davening and saying the Amidah is because my father showed me, because my grandfather showed me, because my great-grandfather showed me, because Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov showed me. And because they showed me the way, that's why I know where to go today. This will take me on a whole new tangent, which we don't have time for today. You know, it's the modern day where communities, especially the younger parts of the community, are fighting for individualism or age-exclusive gatherings. Every shul needs an age group. Every shul caters for a particular age group. On the one hand, you may say, well, it's most beautiful because it encourages people to come together, whether it's teens or young adults or older or younger, it brings them all together. But we can't lose this element of the continuity of family, where the grandparents and the grandchildren can sit at the same table, and not just socially with the family, but even in shul and community is where grandparents can mentor the children, and the children can inspire the grandparents too. That's what the health minister is saying to us. As a younger generation, take care of the older generation. And as an older generation, take care and inspire a younger generation. That's going to be the combination of the two together. And when we have that, then we can be protected wherever we are. We can be living in South Africa, in America, in Australia, wherever it may be, in Israel, and retain our identity. Know who we are. Continue on the traditions of our people. Uvagoyim lo yitchashav, and don't be considered among the nations. Why would you want to go to the nations? We have a fantastic tradition ourselves. Fantastic heritage ourselves that every generation shows the next. Who wants to go to another nation? Who wants to assimilate and lose their identity? It's the most beautiful possession that we have. We're going to hold on to it. So that's my words for today. Hopefully that was some inspiration to you all. You'll take it to your Shabbos tables or on the phone with your families and share that with those that you're in touch with today. We have a fantastic program lined up this afternoon at 4:10 pre-Kabbalat Shabbat with two visitors, Moshe Lichtenstein of Johannesburg and Rabbi Avraham Plotkin of Toronto. So join us at 4:10. We'll be live on Zoom as well as Facebook. So we hope to see you there. In the meantime, keep safe, keep sane, and keep spiritual. And have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos. We'll be back here Sunday morning, 10:30, between Facebook and YouTube. I look forward to seeing you then. Shabbat Shalom.